The fundamental idea is to build essentially a leadership force in our country committed to taking on this very systemic challenge. What I think we all believe is perhaps our country's greatest injustice, which is just that where kids are born predicts essentially where they end up, their access to many things, including an excellent education. We do that by calling upon people to commit 2 years to teach in our highest need urban and rural communities. We invest so much in those folks, knowing that there will be really important immediate impact. I mean, I think about Washington, D.C. When we started placing teachers there, gosh, I guess it was 25 years ago now, it was the lowest performing of all the big urban districts.
Having lived in D.C. for 15 years, I mean, there was no sense of hope.
And now this is the fastest improving urban district. And of course, this is all happening for many reasons. I mean, such committed educators who've been going at this long before we came on the scene, mayors, philanthropists. But if you took out all the Teach for America people from Washington, D.C., you would take away the last 2 schools chancellors, 3/4 of the senior team of the district over probably a decade, 20% of the school principals, the last 5 teachers of the year, hundreds of teachers.
Wow. Well, okay, one of the criticisms of Teach for America is that it is very elitist.
I mean, I remember in the first year, we were so aware of the need to ensure that the folks we were recruiting were diverse and that as many of them as possible actually did share the economic background and or the racial background of the kids we're working with. And it is outrageous that in our country, kids who are growing up below the poverty line, which is a lot of kids, like 20% of our kids, you know, they've got an 8% chance of getting the kind of education that would enable them to basically break out of the cycle of poverty, a college degree. Sadly, we're fighting the problem we're working to address in the sense that our institutions of higher education are painfully non-diverse. So Teach for America's had to work very hard over time to achieve the levels of diversity in the core that we aspire for. But we've made a lot of progress, and the core has just become increasingly diverse over time.
Can you describe briefly what Teach for All is?
Yeah.
And then what, you know, from now getting this larger vantage point and perspective, what you've learned from that?
This issue of educational inequity, it exists in virtually every country in the world. But the silver lining is that it means the solutions are shareable. And so it's a network of independent organizations in now 36 countries and growing, and an organization that works to accelerate the impact of this approach around the world through building awareness of the models, supporting the social entrepreneurs who have a vision for adapting it into their country, and then providing both direct support and a platform for learning and sharing across the network.
I have to point out that during the same time you started Teach for America and Teach for All, you also had 4 children. Everyone wants to know, how did you do that?
You know, so far so good. I mean, there are many just practical challenges, of course, with having a family of 4 kids and having a big pursuit that takes a lot of energy. And you have to give up some things, but there are also so many advantages of the whole thing. I mean, I get to bring my kids into my work. They're seeing firsthand inequities in our own country that I was never exposed to as a kid. I just took my second son, who's 13 in 7th grade, to Kenya with me as we work to support the local social entrepreneurs who are envisioning and developing the plan for Teach for Kenya. My big advice and hopes for our kids growing up today is that they'll expose themselves to the biggest problems in the world and figure out where they want to make the biggest difference. The whole key to this is finding your passion, you know, and I would just say start early.